I know it doesn't seem like it sometimes that Ashley's left the room and her mom, who is my mother-in-law, but I love being a parent. If you have kids or you had to watch kids for a long enough period of time, you understand there's like a delicate balance between loving your children and also being like, you know what we would be doing right now if we didn't have kids? Anything that we wanted. There's this delicate, but I like it. Not because of anything that you might think of, but because I like to watch my two children come into their personality. I like to see it. Last night we were sitting on the couch, and Ryan was sitting with Ashley, and Charlie was sitting beside me. I forget what we were doing. And then they both did something wild, and Ashley and I looked at each other, and I was like, it's so weird that Charlie looks like you, but it's clearly me. And Ryan looks like me, but it's clearly you. If you've had around my children long enough, you know. Charlie looks exactly like Ashley, but she is nothing like Ashley. To her detriment, she will be like me. I like to see it kind of expand. Because when they're little babies, they're slugs. There's really like, meh. But then the kid smiles at you for the first time or laughs for the first time. And they do these things. Ryan has started to socially laugh, which is my favorite thing. She doesn't know why anyone is laughing. She doesn't think anything is funny, but we're laughing. And so she's like, ha ha, I'm laughing because I get it too. She's basically Michael Scott. It's fantastic. You get to see this blossom and grow up. But inside of every one of those personalities, as they develop those little personalities, inside of them, it comes with something else. A will. A deep sense of self-determination. And despite how cute little children are, if you ever cross a little child's self-determination, their will, you will pay for it. Charlie is very, very strong-willed. Very strong-willed. Ryan is significantly more laid back, but has her determinations of things. And so you start to notice these differences. But they both have their own wants and desires. When Charlie comes home from daycare, she walks right over, she grabs a bag of goldfish, she pours it in a little cup, grabs her water, and moves right on. So I help Ryan get her snack, and I go, do you want gummies or goldfish? And she wants both of them. And I have learned it's easier to just let her have both the gummies and the goldfish than to pick that little battle in that moment. She's becoming more and more determined. With a lot of kids, and even some adults that never grew up past childhood, if I like it, it's mine. She likes gummies and goldfish. They're both hers. Charlie likes this little seat that's really Ryan's, but she wants to sit in it because Ryan likes it and Charlie likes it, and so it's mine. If it's inside of their hand, it's mine. If they could take it from you, it's mine. If I had it yesterday, it's also mine. Good. If it's mine, it'll never appear that it's ever yours. It's like I have to protect what's mine. If I'm doing something or I'm building something like with blocks or towers, even if it only takes me 5 pieces to build the tower that I want, all of the pieces are mine. If I saw it first, we're playing along. If I saw it first, it's mine. Good, we're playing along. If I can see it at all, it's mine. If I think it's mine, it's right. If you don't stop me from doing it, it's mine. If you tell me I can have it, it's mine. If it will upset me too much when you take it away from me, it's also mine. If I think I can play with it better than you can play with it, Ryan, it's mine. If you're playing with it, but you put it down, it's now. And if it's broken, it's yours. You know this with kids if you've ever watched them or been around them enough. If they can see it, touch it, taste it, smell it, hold on to it, or remember it existed, it's theirs. What's remarkable is how resilient and adaptive this will is inside of children. We carry it all the way with us in so many ways throughout our entire lives. We carry this indomitable understanding of our existence. It just looks different when we get older. It's more subtle than it was when we were kids. It's more sophisticated, but it's still there. And what it gets to me is just how little getting saved has to do with any of this understanding. And what I mean by that is you can be a Christian and still have this inside of you. Part of our problem with evangelism and our understanding of the salvation and discipleship is that it never confronts the self, the will, the deep, the insidiness. It just baptizes the death and decay away without ever confronting or calling for a deep change to the will, the inside, the depth, the self. You can take it with you. This obsession of the self and who we are can survive this first step, this following out of curiosity. It can survive that. It can even make it to the second step, last week, which is where you trust enough to take a risk. I'll step out of the boat. I trust enough to do that. But by the third step, by this third movement in discipleship, this third step for Peter's journey, this one that we're following, it finally has to be dealt with. It can't be ignored anymore. See, in the first conversion, which Blake talked about so many weeks ago, you just needed curiosity. You just needed a question that you were digging through. When the second, you had to learn to take the risk. You had to learn to take that next risk. But in the third one, you need to learn self-denial. And self-denial is not lowering yourself or just berating yourself. It's losing yourself or surrendering yourself to something bigger than you. Self cannot get rid of the self. Okay, the self cannot eject the self from you. It can't do it. The only thing it can do is surrender to give it to something else. And that's how you can put that in its place. So self-denial is recklessly throwing yourself into something bigger than you until you forget yourself and the entire life before it. It becomes this pursuit of something outside of you, something bigger than you, than the pursuit of what's inside. You with me so far? So we had curiosity, risk-taking, and now self-denial. It's highly adaptive, and it's resilient. If you think, that doesn't sound that hard, you clearly haven't thought all the way through it. It's a continuous problem. You think maybe I've put myself aside, but then it creeps itself back up. It's a lifelong thing. It's a really hard step. It's the reason why a lot of times when people do evangelism and discipleship and they stop at this step. It's easy-ish to follow out of curiosity and find something cool and interesting to do. It's not too bad to learn to take a couple risks that might not pan all the way out. But if you ask someone to say, hey, forget about anything you wanted, suddenly it's not as fun to watch on Sunday morning before you drive off to church. It doesn't really get the phones ringing. It comes with a lot of struggle. And it's a battle that typically goes on inside of you when God is trying to do this. You have this battle over and over because by nature, you resist it. You fight. You try to negotiate it. You call God names. You shout. You protest. Maybe you do something that makes God pay a little bit for making me think about this. But if you stay with it, if you can stay there, it's the third step of conversion, this discipleship movement. And you'll come out the other side of it, ready for what's next. And we've been following Peter. And for Peter, this happens in Caesarea Philippi. This moment for him. It's Caesarea Philippi. First of all, it's really fun to say, Caesarea Philippi. Just like, doesn't it just like fly off your tongue? What a word. Caesarea Philippi. Anyway, it's a Roman military outpost. And it's the summer home for Caesar. Caesarea Philippi is the city in Jesus' day that is lined with the monuments and the honors of the Roman authority, to tribute to the greatness of Rome. It's important to understand because what Jesus is going to say will fly in the teeth of everything that is surrounding him in this moment. You have to picture yourself standing in like the Mall of Washington, D.C. Have you ever been there? You ever been to the mall in Washington, D.C.? Not like where you go and like buy things, but like where all the things are. It's called the mall. And there's like the Washington Monument, Jefferson. They're all right there. You got to imagine you're standing, there's a monument to Washington, and there's Jefferson over there, and the Lincoln is like in front of you a little bit, and it's just like monuments to the greatness of the American heritage. Picture yourself standing there, and there's all the roads are lined with the flags. You got the image. You're surrounded by the vestiges of American conquest and government. And here, for him, in Caesarea Philippi, similar setting, in the shadow of the empire, Jesus will proclaim something different. And it's under this view of the empire and the honors of the empire and the desires and the greatness of the empire that Jesus says this to his disciples. Matthew 16, 13 through 20. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you? Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, he said, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter. And on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." And then he ordered his disciples to not tell anyone that he was the Messiah. He says this to them, under the shadow of the Roman authority, the empire, the greatness of this great empire. He says, "Who do you say that I am? Who do people say?" And they give him a couple. They say John the Baptist, Jeremiah, Elijah. Maybe you're just a prophet. Then it changes its tone a little bit in Greek. It goes from this questioning thing to this more emphatic statement. The way it's said more directly, it's more emphatic, it's more there's a little more oomph behind it. And Jesus says, "But who do you say that I am?" So before he's like, "Hey, who do people say I am?" This is the tone of it. Now the tone in Greek second time, "But who do you say I am?" More direct. And Peter, because he's Peter, doesn't wait. He says, "You are the Christ, the anointed one, the favored one of God. You're the Son of God." Now, up until this point for Matthew's Gospel, no one has called Jesus this. Jesus rarely, if ever, even took this title for himself. But Peter is way ahead of our other disciples in this moment. For Peter, they're saying that maybe he's one of these things, but he's like flipped a few pages forward. He's got an answer here. And Jesus recognizes this. He looks at Peter for a second time, and he says, "Bless you, Peter. That was revealed to you by my Father in heaven. Not any human being could have ever told you that. No one else has said this of me. You've skipped to the teacher's answers at the back of the book." And then Jesus makes some cryptic statements about this thing that he's going to do. Make some cryptic statements. I want to make sure I read far enough. And then Jesus makes the cryptic statement. He says he's going to build a church. Now the word there in Greek is ekklesia, which I don't know if you've heard it before, but say it with me. Ekklesia. Ekklesia. It's a group of people who are called out. This is what the word means in Greek. And the people who used this term in Jesus' day, this ekklesia, the ones that were called out were Romans. They used it for a military draft. So if you were called out, you were one of the called out ones in a military draft, you were part of the ekklesia, the ones that were called out. And around him is a military outpost. And whenever there was a draft, they would say to the citizens that the men were called out from the citizenry into the draft. They used it for elections. You were called out of your homes and out of your neighborhoods with ballots to go and cast ballots. You would go to the center of the public market, and you would cast your ballot as one of the called out ones. You were part of the ekklesia. And so Jesus takes this term that is just rich in legacy with the empire, and he uses it for something completely different. He says, "I'm going to build my own ekklesia, my own community of ones who are called out. And hell will not stop it." And then he says to Peter, I will give you the kingdom of heaven, so that whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you permit here on earth will be permitted in heaven. You will have authority on things that go way beyond what the Romans have authority over. Whatever they bind and do in Rome will stay in Rome, but whatever you bind and do on this plane will be bound to be done in heaven. But you can't tell anyone who I am. Then he says this, 21. From that time on, Jesus began explaining to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hand of the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and begins to rebuke him, yell at him, tell him he's wrong, right? Never. This shall not ever happen to you. And then Jesus turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely ones of humans. And then he said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up the cross and follow me. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever wants to lose their life will find me. Or will lose life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the world but forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with angels, and they will reward each person according to what they've done. Truly I say to you, some of you who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I'll give you the kingdom. And then he tells them, I'm going to go off to Jerusalem and some bad stuff's going to go down. And it's 4 times in the original language that he states that he has to go to Jerusalem and be handed over. That he must suffer and be killed by the religious leaders and rise again. That this is a necessity, that this has to happen. Peter gets it right. Jesus tells him what's going to happen. And then Peter says, God forbid that will ever happen to you. I've seen what you can do. I've seen this. This is not this. This is not going to happen. And Jesus tells Peter, he says, get behind me, Satan. And it's not like get away from me, okay? It's not like get away, right? He means, if you can remember all the way back to week 1, go all the way back to Blake here, what he's saying is, get back with me. He's not excommunicating, he's not telling Peter to run away and go away. He's telling Peter, hey, you're getting ahead of me here, and I need you to get back here. Do you remember week 1? We follow out of curiosity, come and follow me. What does that mean, Blake? We come alongside, right? We don't trail way behind, but we also don't take the front lead. Okay, get back here. You've lost your place here, Peter. And it's in this moment that I think you can hear Peter's religion start to fall apart a little bit. Because they have 2 completely different definitions of what it means to be a follower of Jesus in this moment, of what it means to follow the anointed one, the Christ. They got two different understandings of what happens to this group of people. 2 different visions of who God is really. Peter cannot imagine a God who loses to the Romans. Jesus basically says, I'm going to do stuff, and I'm going to establish this called out group, and this is what it's going to be. And then right after he says, but I'm also going to go to Rome and lose in your mind here. I'm going to go there and lose. He can't imagine that. Jesus, though, he cannot imagine a God that doesn't die. Peter can't imagine one that does. Jesus doesn't imagine one who doesn't. Do you see the tension between the 2 of them pretty quickly here? It's a critical little moment when God starts to do some crazy things. And then Jesus says, the problem is with Peter's mind. There's a couple of words for this, but the word that Jesus uses here to describe what's going on with Peter, he doesn't mean his brain. I mean, I want you to, so you can spot it here. You don't have in mind the concerns. So it's not the word for brain. It doesn't mean his thoughts. The word means his instincts. That word, closer to being like an instinct you would have. His biases. The way that he sees the world. Are you with me with this? Not what he's thinking, his state of being, the way he his reactions, his biases. And what Jesus is saying to Peter is, your problem is that, not that you don't see things, it's that you don't see the way that God does. You see it like a human does. And you're not going to get to the place where you can get in alongside me here until your mind, your beliefs, your instincts, your biases, your natural, it's changed. And I think we waste so much time in the church and in small groups and in discipleship and in these evangelistic moments on behavior modification. Right? Well, if you're going to be in this church, you got to put the devil's bottle into the cabinet and never drink from that bottle again. That's behavior modification. No more drinking. No more smoking. Better do other behavior modifications. Hey, we tithe in this church. You with me? You know what I'm talking about? If you want to be in this church, this is what our behaviors are. You catch me? We waste a lot of time on behavior modification. Because the purpose of discipleship isn't to change your behavior. I haven't been struck by lightning yet. It's not to change your behavior. It's to change your instinct. It's to change your gut response. The way you act before you have time to think. That's the part that discipleship really should be targeting to change. This is really our third step to attack. Because anything less than changing the instinct, changing the gut response, anything less than that is allowing the self to still make the decision. It's conformity. And you can settle for that. You can stop at step 2 and be in charge and decide the behaviors. You can say, I've signed the thing, I'm not going to drink because I'm in this church. And you could still go home and pop a bottle of wine at night. No one is going to know. But there's so much more possible. This is only week 3. This is 6 weeks long, or 7. I don't even know. God can change your inner mind, the self, so that you have entirely different value systems. You don't even like or do or understand the stuff you used to do. You just have completely different desires deep down. And that seems like it can be a long way off. Maybe in the next life, Phil. Maybe next time. But Jesus here is basically, why put off for heaven something that is possible now? Because he speaks like it's possible now. And this is this crossroads for Peter and for us a lot, where we find himself between his vision of how the kingdom thing works, how the Christian life works, and what Jesus is saying. And Jesus is talking nonsense. It's like he's talking nonsense. And Jesus says everything is different in God's mind. And for Peter, you and me, so many times, this is unacceptable. But for God, it's a necessity. Because we can't imagine this. But it's the only thing God can imagine. For us, for Peter, it's all sadness and death on the cross. But for God, it was glory. He gets to see the end of the story before we do. And then Jesus moves into this vision. And it goes out even higher, and he says that he's no longer talking about himself. And he's talking about us. He says, anyone who wants to be my disciple denies themselves, takes up their cross, not Jesus' cross, your cross, as if there was something already in front of you, ready for you to pick up, already upon you that you can't deny any longer, and you have to pick it up, and you've got to walk alongside, follow. You've got to deny the thing inside of you that says, I don't think I want to pick that up. You got to deny that self-investment, self-determination, self-actualization, and self-preservation. Let go. And that's counterintuitive. If I had a cross and 3 nails sitting over there and I said, Amy, I need you to go crucify yourself real quick. You'd be like, okay, I don't think so. It's counterintuitive. Because for us, in this moment, it feels like death. If I do this, if I sacrifice the self, we're pulling out of literal crucifixion here. Everyone come back out of that image for a second. If I do these things, if I let go of myself, if I really get rid of my self-determination and I do these things, I might as well be dead. Who am I? But what Jesus says is, if you do this, what you're really doing is you're starting to actually live. Essentially asking, do you realize, Peter, how free you would be if you stopped being so obsessed with the self? You could walk into a conversation, any conversation, and you could say things freely, and you wouldn't have to get in the car afterwards and drive home and be like, I probably shouldn't have said that. I know I'm not alone, and Ashley's not here to defend herself. But Ashley will be like, I said this at work today. Do you think they're going to fire me? I'm like, just speak up. You know what I mean? We've all done it. You could say things freely and not have to worry about how you said it or what you said or what you looked like in that moment. What were they thinking? Did they like me there? That seemed like it was a little tense. I don't know. You could be so absorbed in the moment with the other person that you don't even think about your own situation. You're just in the moment with the person. Could you imagine being in a movie where you're not the star of the movie? We went on a cruise 2 weeks ago when Blake was here. It was celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And we were sitting in the solarium, which is like the adult 18-only pool area. So because there's a lot of kids on the ship, so it's like quieter there and it's not as rowdy. So we were sitting in like the lounge chair in the pool. And I remember Ashley looked over at Kirsty, Kyle, and us, and she goes, "Did you ever look at everybody else on the ship? There's 7,000 other people on the ship. And all of them are the star of their own movie. And you're just like an NPC in the background. Did you ever go to like a football game or anywhere where there's tons of people? You go, all of these people are real and they have their own lives. They're stars of their movie. They have no idea who you are. You with me though? Could you imagine not being the star in your own life? And it takes so many different forms. Getting old doesn't take this away or make it better. You just are this, but you're old now. It's like, you're just old. Old people still think they're the stars of their own movies. That's why they sit on their porch and complain about things, right? They're still the stars of it. What used to be a competition for you in your young ages, networking and figuring it out. I remember when I was leaving ministry at the last church I was at, thinking about doing this, Ashley kept being like, you got to go out and get lunches with pastors. You got to network. You got to get your business card out to people. You got to, right? That's what it was. And in your 60s and 70s, it's your reputation and legacy. It goes from networking, making connections with people, to like, how will I be remembered? Do you see how it's the same thing, though? It's the same problem. And there's two things that have to happen in order for us to inch our way out of this, to deny ourselves, right? Deny the self, be more, let it go to move on to the next step. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news about it, but eventually you will come to a place in your life where God's going to start misbehaving. He's gonna start misbehaving. You're not gonna like what God has to say to you in this moment. He's gonna start saying things or calling for things that to you are irrational and could not in a million years imagine that a good God would tolerate this. Let alone ask me to be a part of it. He'll lead you into the wilderness to be tempted. It's gonna happen. There'll be a crisis. A dark night, and you will hear the timbers of your faith, the foundations that you built everything on, rattling. And you'll start to think you're losing it. God's not like this. And you don't even know what you believe anymore. If God can't be like that, then it's like he can't be anything I need him to be at all. Is this some new definition that I need to follow to come alongside? Matthew 4, right? To come over. We're going to evangelize the world. We're going to go do this. But what happens here in Matthew 16 is that this road that they were walking on suddenly starts to seem like it's getting narrower and getting a little harder to do. In the crisis, as the road begins to shift down or make a turn you weren't expecting, where it feels like everything is not making sense and it's getting harder to negotiate with God about myself and the things I thought were going well for me and now this stuff, there's two things that are necessary. One of them is to surrender what's happening or not happening. Because as long as you complain or threaten or toss the blame or think you deserve or don't deserve, or you analyze or look for the meaning of it, part of the problem is there is no meaning. Because the meaning was never the point. That's what we get. What's the meaning of all of this? The meaning is not the point. It was never the point. The point is loyalty. Here, now, even in this, are you still here? We have to surrender to what is obviously inevitable. We'll have to accept it and embrace it. It's here in this thing that God is giving me himself in some new way. I just really hate the way it was presented. The second thing is you have to re-up. I couldn't think of a better word for this. You got to re-up. You got to go back to God and say, hey, none of this makes any sense, and I don't like it. And I have some serious questions about it, but I'm not going to leave. And you might think, well, what the hell am I holding on to then? In that moment, if I got all these things, what the hell am I even doing here? You won't know. But if you will not let go, the one thing that I can't really promise it to you because it's not mine to hold, but the one thing God can promise to you is that you will make the rest of that journey with God. And there's a bonding in this never-ending journey between the two of you that is like no other place. Our ambitions change when we let go of ourselves. We may not know why, where, when, how, but as the road narrows, will we re-up and stick to it? Let's pray.